Imagine a land where even your breath is regulated, where marching in unison is a daily ritual, and where worship is not a choice but an obligation. Welcome to North Korea, a nation encased in concrete walls and suffocating ideologies. Here, the young face a grim reality as military service transforms from a source of pride into an all-consuming dread. As they approach the age of 17, they are caught in a life-altering crossroads where their fate hinges not on loyalty to the state, but on the weight of their families' pockets. In this shadowy underworld, a complex, invisible network operates, powered by the engine of corruption. Bribery has become the lifeblood of a system that clings desperately to control yet withers from within. Families navigate this treacherous landscape, making soul-wrenching sacrifices, selling homes, auctioning family heirlooms, offering everything of value in hopes of staving off compulsory military service. This is no longer merely a battle for land, it is a struggle for the future of youth, where grim realities clash with dreams of freedom. With military service now a breeding ground for despair, the young resort to both desperate and harrowing measures. Some exploit the system's flaws, malnourishing themselves, striving to appear ineligible. Others take even darker paths, inflicting deliberate injuries to escape this institutional prison, their bodies a canvas of sacrifice. Is it worth the pain? For these young souls, it's not just a desperate flight from duty but a fight against losing their very essence to a regime that has suffocated hope. As the once glorious idea of serving the motherland turns into a shackle of despair, a growing number of young North Koreans dare to dream of breaking free. Yet, the stakes are high. The journey to evade this fate is fraught with peril, a gamble that can lead to either freedom or death. Many look beyond the borders, seeking refuge in South Korea, but the risks are monumental. Increased surveillance, fortified borders, and an unforgiving regime make this escape a treacherous endeavor. Tragically, while the hunger for freedom looms large, the harsh reality remains. For every handful of hopeful defectors, many more are trapped in the cycle of repression, facing treacherous waters of despair that threaten to drown their spirit. The walls may be concrete, but the dreams of freedom stand resilient, even as they clash against the iron grip of a regime that fears the very notion of escape. Will the threads of corruption unravel? Will their cries for liberation echo ever louder, disturb the status quo, and break the silence that holds them captive? Thus, the saga continues, a pulse of resistance beats against the backdrop of oppression. Only time will reveal whether these extraordinary quests for liberation can ignite a revolution against a system that has long lost its grip on the loyalty of its people. In a land governed by unyielding rules, a silent rebellion begins to stir among the youth of North Korea. The fight against the oppressive regime is not just about freedom, it is about saving their futures. Families are now caught in a desperate battle, sacrificing everything to prevent their children from being drafted into a military service that has turned into a living nightmare. But how far will they go to protect their loved ones? The soldiers at the conscription offices and the local doctors turned a blind eye to reality, colluding in darkness with forged medical reports. These fraudulent documents, depicting dire ailments like tuberculosis or chronic heart disease, have turned into commodities with set prices, easily traded by those desperate enough to escape the clutches of military service. Yet, while some families can navigate this corrupt lottery, countless others are not so fortunate, leaving them to pursue increasingly desperate measures. Imagine the lengths one might go to for survival. Some young men starve themselves, hoping their frail bodies will slip under the physical requirements. Others are even willing to seek out illness by mingling with sick patients, all in the bleak hope of an exemption. But this struggle spirals even darker. For the most desperate, the method becomes mutilation. Broken bones from staged accidents or self-inflicted injuries become their only tickets out of military duty. This harrowing battle for a life free from regime oppression extends its weight beyond the youth, burdening their entire families. Parents deplete their savings, delving into unending debts, silently grieving as they witness their children being taken away, knowing they have abandoned every chance for a future. It is a stark transformation from what once was. Joining the Korean People's Army symbolized pride, an ascent in society, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. Now the uniform is a mark of shame, a burden that suffocates the hopes of an entire generation. In this grim reality, the quest for freedom morphs into a harrowing tale of resilience, an emotional echo that lingers long after the dreams have faded. What does it really mean to survive when the path lies shrouded in despair? As the cries of these families grow louder, can the oppressive grip of the regime truly remain unbroken? In a world where freedom is a distant dream, North Korea stands as a stark reminder of a regime's grip on its people. For the youth of this nation, the once revered uniform of the Korean People's Army has transformed from a symbol of pride into a haunting nightmare. No longer an emblem of hope, military service now signifies suffering and endless toil. This past spring, the grim reality hit home when the North Korean army filled only 60% of its required reserve quotas, triggering alarm bells in Pyongyang. In response, the state has intensified its crackdown on individuals attempting to dodge conscription. Article 41 of the Youth Education Guarantee Law has brought forth harsh consequences, with anyone involved, from doctors fabricating exemptions to desperate parents, facing severe penalties, including imprisonment and possibly death. The pressure to conform is suffocating. For countless young people, the only escape from the relentless cycle of military service is to flee, not merely from the army, but from the very essence of their identity, the homeland they've known, and their families. This treacherous journey is fraught with peril, often starting with the ultimate sacrifice, risking death to seek the light of freedom. In recent years, around 34,000 North Koreans have embarked on this harrowing quest, reaching the shores of South Korea. This statistic represents far more than mere numbers. It echoes the silent cries of a population yearning for liberation, illustrating the cracks in the regime's facade that cannot hold forever. Each escape carries a story steeped in desperation and fear, revealing the lengths to which individuals will go to seek a life beyond the iron walls of oppression. As the drumbeat of despair grows louder, one must wonder, how many more will be lost to the cold grip of the regime before the dam breaks? Each attempt is fraught with danger and uncertainty, and the path to freedom has transformed into a labyrinth filled with treachery and betrayal. Will the sacrifices made by these brave souls lead to a brighter future, or will they simply mark another chapter in a long saga of suffering? The weight of their choices hangs painfully in the air, awaiting the next bold move against a relentless force. The desire to escape North Korea has evolved significantly through the years. Initially, during the horrific famine of the mid-1990s, the urgency to flee stemmed from a desperate need to survive rather than a rejection of oppression. Individuals weren't chasing dreams of freedom, they were fleeing the suffocating grip of starvation. What does it feel like when your very life hinges on a meager meal? Children with hollow eyes, longing for any scraps, and frail elders, driven by primal instinct, braved the icy currents of the Tumen River or the perilous waters of the Yalu. Tragically, many vanished beneath the surface, caught in the clutches of winter's icy grasp. Some were apprehended by Chinese patrols, only to be forcibly returned to a regime awaiting them with dire consequences. Most who dared return faced labor camps or simply faded into oblivion. This was no ordinary escape, it was a fight against a predatory system, an instinctive self-preservation act. People were escaping not merely a nation but the pervasive scent of death. As the years rolled into the 2000s, the motivations for fleeing shifted once again. The famine waned, but an insidious malaise descended, an ideological exhaustion that seeped into the hearts of the population. Now, those seeking refuge were not just escaping hunger but the weight of despair and unending oppression. The younger generations, fueled by glimpses of freedom through smuggled South Korean television shows and music from across borders, began to dream of a life far removed from the bleak narrative prescribed by the state. The aspiration to don a military uniform, once a source of honor, faded. Instead, they yearned for simple pleasures, like sipping coffee in a bustling Seoul cafe. Escape morphed from mere survival into a quest to truly live, but a heavier burden crept in, an overwhelming sense of hopelessness for the future. The toll of military service now loomed large, casting shadows over their aspirations. What once symbolized national pride had become a metaphor for forced labor, where soldiers toiled not for their homeland but for the arbitrary whims of generals. Soldiers now faced malnourishment, disease, and cruelty that turned their time in the military into a quest for survival. How could they surrender a decade of their lives to such misery? Many chose to risk everything, not just to escape the clutches of military service but to liberate themselves from a stifling existence. Today's escapes are perilous, marked by the weight of restrictions and increasingly fortified borders. The human spirit reaches for freedom, yet faces monumental odds. With borders barred and vigilant guards, the hope of reaching South Korea dims like a flickering candle in a storm. This journey transforms into a life-threatening expedition, where every step out could mean the end. In the first half of 2025 alone, only 96 managed to cross into freedom, a stark contrast to previous years. Yet, the persistent yearning to escape endures, fueling a relentless fight against a life of chains, proving that the quest for freedom is often fraught with despair. In the desolate reality of North Korea, the youth's vision of a brighter future contrasts sharply with the suffocating expectations placed upon them. Gone are the days when wearing a military uniform symbolized honor. Now, many young North Koreans yearn not for accolades in the army, but the simple pleasure of sipping coffee in a lively cafe in Seoul. For them, departure from their homeland symbolizes a profound transformation, from mere survival to the dream of rebuilding their lives in freedom. This merging of aspirations intensifies the weight of unfulfilled hopes, especially as the oppressive shadow of military service looms over them. The state-sanctioned military, once regarded as a cornerstone of national pride, has devolved into a harsh reality resembling a labor camp. Instead of protecting the homeland, young soldiers are exploited, toiling on construction sites or farms for the benefit of generals, their humanity reduced to a mere cog in the regime's machinery. Basic nutritional needs go unmet, diseases proliferate, and violence from superiors breeds an atmosphere of despair. For many, the thought of dedicating a decade to such a grim fate becomes unbearable. To escape this nightmare, they are willing to risk everything, even their lives. As the year 2025 unfolds, the harsh truth strikes: only 96 North Koreans succeeded in reaching South Korea in just the first half of the year. A stark decline from earlier years, this number reflects a widespread realization that attempts to flee have become perilous. With the COVID-19 pandemic seizing the world, Kim Jong-un fortified the nation's borders, transforming them into impenetrable barriers. Increasing numbers of guards patrol the frontiers, while watchtowers loom ominously. Orders to shoot anyone attempting to cross have been instated, creating an environment rife with fear. Moreover, the influence of China, North Korea's most significant ally, has shifted as they enact stricter crackdowns on defectors. Captured individuals face the horrifying prospect of being repatriated, where torture awaits in defiance of international laws. For the individuals escaping these nightmarish conditions, hiding in China becomes a prolonged struggle, often lasting years, vulnerable to human traffickers. The journey is treacherous, filled with perilous paths across third countries like Laos or Vietnam. Yet, amidst this dangerous saga, a glimmer of hope persists. Those who manage to reach a South Korean embassy undertake a life-altering journey toward newfound freedom. However, this path is fraught with uncertainties. Will they evade the iron grip of the regime, survive the treacherous journey, and find solace in a land that promises them a life devoid of oppression? The stories of these brave souls offer a haunting glimpse into what it means to fight for a glimpse of light in a world filled with darkness. In the heart of North Korea, epic parades unfold amidst a facade of splendor, hiding a haunting truth. Those soldiers with flawless precision conceal a silent struggle, an entire generation that has shattered their own bodies to escape a life they never chose. They have wagered their families' futures, traversed frozen rivers, and even risked enslavement in foreign lands to break free from a suffocating regime. But the pivotal question remains: what truly shapes North Korea's destiny? It is not the imposing might of intercontinental ballistic missiles or the explosive force of nuclear arsenals. The fabric of this nation's future is woven by the invisible threads of choice made by countless young souls in forgotten towns. Each decision to reject the oppressive future offered by the regime is a powerful act of defiance, subtly eroding the foundation of their society. This rebellion is quiet yet profoundly impactful, possibly more so than any missile launch. The stakes have never been higher. As North Koreans seek liberation from a regime that does not resonate with them, their silent cries become louder, echoing through a land stifled by control. Inside those parades, against the backdrop of state-sanctioned glory, lies a poignant irony. The real war is not on the battlefield but within the hearts of the people. They face an uncertain future, yet they choose to fight back, not with arms, but with the courage to dream of freedom. This rebellion symbolizes hope and destruction of the regime's facade, proving that the spirit of resilience can rise even in the darkest times. As the struggle continues, we witness the slow unraveling of an oppressive regime. But will this path lead to liberation or deeper oppression? Only time will tell as the voices of North Korea's youth emerge from the shadows, signifying a turning tide. The unfolding of this story holds immense stakes, not only for North Korea but for the entire world. The battle for the future is silently waged, and its outcome could reshape destinies forever. In a land smothered by concrete and suffocating silence, where mere breath is orchestrated by decree, millions wake to the haunting echoes of the same morning march. They greet each other with robotic slogans, paying homage to a leader who looms eternally over their lives. Here, citizens belong first to the state, then to a figurehead, a chain that binds them to a reality from which they yearn to escape. But now, a whisper of change stirs among the youth. For the younger generation, the oaths that once felt binding begin to tighten like a noose. Military service, which was heralded as an honor, spirals into an abyss of dread. Young people, once eager to serve their country, now desperately seek avenues of escape, tapping into an underground network that thrives in shadows, with loyalty at any cost. Bribery emerges as the pulse of this underground resistance. Secret, corrupt channels are controlled by officers, doctors, and officials, all interconnected through a network of deceit. Families scramble to gather funds, perhaps skimming dollars from years of hard labor or securing meager earnings from the black market. What was once a symbol of pride, military service now feels like a step toward doom, and the youth refuse to march toward certain pain. But not everyone can muster the wealth to secure freedom. Desperation drives some to self-harm or to mold their bodies into instruments of betrayal, resorting to extreme measures just to avoid the clutches of a life they never wanted. They forge false medical reports, cut off fingers, transforms young lives into pawns in a game of deceit. Fake medical reports, butter. Suddenly, a darker truth emerges. The threat of prison, labor camps, or worse, death, looms ever closer as military quotas remain unfilled. The regime, once so secure, now trembles as its own young people slip through the cracks. Watching their children march away in tears feels like a curse for many parents, their dreams sacrificed on the altar of an ideology losing its grip. Amidst this turmoil, the very essence of North Korean identity is challenged. The aspiration to wear a military uniform has morphed from a dream into a nightmare, causing an alarming shift. As parades echo through Pyongyang, they mask a profound emptiness, a facade of strength hiding the scars of an entire generation that seeks to break free, even as new laws tighten the noose around the necks of those who dare to resist. An unexpected escalation unfolds as Kim Jong-un confronts the determined youth. His desperate measures to inhibit desertion create a chilling atmosphere, where escape becomes increasingly perilous. With cracks appearing in his authoritarian grip, he faces an insurmountable dilemma: to tighten the chains and risk igniting rebellion or to loosen them and watch his power dissipate. Now, as the journey for freedom becomes a treacherous path fraught with peril, a staggering reality emerges. A choice between enduring the horrors of military servitude or breaking free into the unknown haunts the minds of countless young men and women. For these brave souls, underneath the heel of tyranny. Each escape narrative weaves through the annals of a collective struggle, illuminating a society crumbling under the weight of ideology. The masses a thought as they weigh their options. Escape isn't simply about leaving behind a regime, it's about shedding a life they've known entirely. The hearts of the weary beat faster, fear and hope dancing together as the first steps toward liberation become an undeniable call. As the youth of North Korea strategize their paths to freedom, the stakes grow higher. The reality of forced labor in foreign lands casts a shadow over their decisions. Are they truly escaping or merely trading one form of oppression for another? Behind the initial enthusiasm lies a haunting truth: the journey of escape is fraught with hardships none can anticipate, and the dream of freedom morphs into a nightmare. The walls of North Korea may seem impenetrable, yet within them lies a potent resistance, silently amplifying as the regime clings to its fading power. As each day passes, the stories of harrowing escapes accumulate like echoes in the wind, representing not just numbers, but the raw, desperate cries for a life unchained. The future hangs in the balance, calling for those courageous enough to seize it against insurmountable odds. In a land smothered by concrete and suffocating silence, where mere breath is orchestrated by decree, millions wake to the haunting echoes of the same morning march. They greet each other with robotic slogans, paying homage to a leader who looms eternally over their lives. Here, citizens belong first to the state, then to a figurehead, a chain that binds them to a reality from which they yearn to escape. But now, a whisper of change stirs among the youth. For the younger generation, the oaths that once felt binding begin to tighten like a noose. Military service, which was heralded as an honor, spirals into an abyss of dread. Young people, once eager to serve their country, now desperately seek avenues of escape, tapping into an underground network that thrives in shadows. This clandestine operation, though nameless, flourishes on one pivotal word: bribery. In a regime obsessive about control, corruption festers like an unchecked virus, eating away at the very fabric of the military, the supposed ideological bastion. As children approach the age of 17, they face an unthinkable dilemma: life or death. Their fate hinges not on loyalty but on the size of the bribes their families can muster, a cruel lottery fueled by hidden wealth gathered from the black market. Some scrape together remnants of their financial futures, selling items passed down through generations to protect their children from compulsory service. This war is not merely about borders, it's a fight for survival, a war waged on future dreams. The machinery of corruption, greased by officer complicity, transforms young lives into pawns in a game of deceit. Fake medical reports, Suddenly, a darker truth emerges. The threat of prison, labor camps, or worse, death, looms ever closer as military quotas remain unfilled. The regime, once so secure, now trembles as its own young people slip through the cracks, becomes a bitter necessity. Parents either drown in lifelong debts or bear witness to their children's heartbreak, knowing escape from the clutches of the military is fading. Once, military uniforms symbolized honor and promise, now, they signify a descent into labor camps under the brutal weight of a regime's indifference. In spring, North Korea's military could only fill 60% of its quotas, alarming the palace that desperately seeks to maintain a facade of strength. Consequently, penalties for evasion have escalated into threats of imprisonment and forced labor camps, even the death penalty lurking in the shadows of compliance. Yet, this oppressive grip may be steering youth towards even bolder acts of desperation. For those lacking the means for bribery or unable to escape physical trials, exile emerges as their final recourse. To leave one's country, this is more than abandoning a military duty, it equates to severing ties with family, homeland, and identity. Each escape is fraught with danger. Many have dared the treacherous routes leading to South Korea, 34,000 souls who embraced the risk of death for freedom. This statistic reflects a deeper desperation, an utter exhaustion from a lifetime lived underneath the heel of tyranny. Each escape narrative weaves through the annals of a collective struggle, illuminating a society crumbling under the weight of ideology. The mass exodus began amidst famine, a fight not for freedom but for survival. As desperate citizens crossed rivers, some were swept away by icy currents while others were recaptured, facing brutality upon return. Their struggles were no longer political but an instinctual response to a life devoid of hope. As years passed, motivation evolved. With a lessening of hunger, despair became the breeding ground for rebellion. The young now possess glimpses of a life outside, thanks to smuggled media from abroad. Experiencing joy through South Korean shows or music from the West ignites dreams of a vibrant life beyond regime controls. However, the dread of military service looms ominously overhead, transforming what once was pride into a living nightmare. In desperation, these young souls choose to confront death over enduring oppressive servitude. Yet, the journey to freedom is perilous, plagued with brutal realities. The number of successful escapes dwindled, particularly during the pandemic, as borders hardened into formidable walls and desperation echoed deeper within the hearts of many. Even as Kim Jong-un tightens his grip through extreme measures, including a crackdown on defectors in China, the allure of freedom remains strong. Those who flee become wary of human traffickers, navigating harsh terrains to find an elusive sanctuary. The stakes rise higher every day, but so does the hope for a better life. Yet, many are sent to slavery or forced labor in distant lands. Traded like commodities instead of freed individuals. Through an evolving landscape of escape, the young fight not only against the regime but against the complete erosion of their identity. This ongoing struggle leaves tantalizing questions lingering in the air. Will they break free entirely? Can any regime hold forever against the weight of human aspiration and the desperate desire for dignity? Behind the spectacle of military parades lies a haunting truth, an entire generation at war with the hope of survival and the longing for freedom amidst oppression. Imagine fleeing a regime that watches every breath, only to discover that the road to liberty leads into a hidden prison far beyond the border, where the sky is a dull gray, the air smells of coal dust, and hands are forced to hew stone for a nation that treats its workers as living ledgers of foreign currency. Could any hope survive such a betrayal? Previously we saw families selling homes, jewelry, and futures to bribe officials, use breaking limbs or starving themselves to dodge the draft, and a handful managing to slip past the fortified frontier into South Korea. Now the story turns darker. Not every escape ends in freedom. The regime has crafted a second, cruel exit, forced labor in the Russian Far East. Thousands of young men are shipped across the frozen border, their passports seized, their movements tracked by silent North Korean agents. They awaken in cramped dormitories that echo with the clang of metal, the hiss of steam from nearby factories, the sour taste of cold water on cracked lips. Day after day they toil 12 to 16 hours beneath flickering lights, hacking timber, shoveling coal, dragging heavy slabs of concrete. The chill of the Siberian wind seeps through thin walls, biting skin already bruised by exhaustion. Their wages? A phantom. Up to 90% vanishes instantly, funneled straight to Pyongyang's treasury. The remainder barely covers a stale loaf and a thin soup that does little to warm trembling bodies. These workers are not guests, they are prisoners. Their lives are recorded in ledgers, their value measured in the hard cash that fuels a nuclear ambition. Every breath they draw feels like another coin dropped into a vault they will never own. How can a nation that promises honor to its soldiers turn its own children into commodities for profit? The tragedy deepens. While some manage to breach the border, many remain trapped in a system harsher than the camps they fled. The promise of escape becomes a cruel illusion, a loop of suffering that spirals outward. The young male population, once the engine of national productivity, is now either hidden in secret prisons or vanished from the country entirely. What will become of a society that drains its youth to feed a regime's endless hunger? The answer hangs in the cold air, waiting for the next desperate soul to choose between a life of chained labor and the unknown darkness of a perilous flight. Will the next generation find a way to break the chain, or will the weight of duty crush their dreams forever?